So he had some spicy words for her. She took it to the internet. She's putting him on blast. She wants the internet to cancel him. Why? Because he may have a little more strict expectations for his romantic partner than some people in the internet might agree with. Boundaries are an important thing, but it's way more important to talk about them ahead of time so this shit doesn't happen. Fellas, I'm speaking mostly to you fellas. I was in a long-term relationship with a partner. Do you see the fly on my arm? I was in an extremely long-term relationship with a partner who I had disagreements with on certain boundaries. I respected hers to some degree. Ah, damn it, missed him. And she respected mine to some degree as well. And we found little middle grounds. And oh my God, now there's two of them. I tried. Oh, this is insane. Okay, so over time, that Overton window shifted. And we had some disagreements. Nope, didn't get it. And that Overton window shifted, and we found a different middle ground. Well, over time, I started to hear complaints that middle ground was not good enough. That she was unhappy with where the boundaries had been moved. And I said, okay, well, you have agreed to this. Like, we have agreed to this part of our life. This relationship is not worth me sacrificing these other parts of my life. Like, I would love to find a way to work this out. I would love to find a way to make this work. And she kind of agreed to sacrifice her own boundaries for a number of years. Until it grew too much. So the warning I'm giving you folks is this. It's... If you're seeing these kind of red flags early in the relationship, instead of playing these power structure games that relationships go through, and let me tell you, it is very clear to me from the screenshots and from her narrative in the captions, right? Notice how he misapplies the word boundaries and then all the little fucking captions. She's also a control freak. She has to control the narrative. Now, whether she should be able to party and wear bikinis and post things to Instagram, I wouldn't give a shit. I wouldn't give a shit. But there would definitely be a situation where if I started seeing a lot of guys hanging around and I thought there was inappropriate things happening, that might cause that conversation to happen. But he's like, okay, well, either you can do it or you can't. And I support you doing whatever you want to do, but it just won't be in a relationship with me. And the fact that point of view is now being called emotionally abusive by so many people on Twitter. Literally, go do whatever you want. It just won't be with me. That's not emotionally abusive. That's literally the opposite. That's empowering. That's saying, look, I would rather lose you than see you be unhappy. I would rather lose you than see you have to sacrifice for my feelings. That's noble as fuck. And anyone who tells you that's emotionally abusive, those are fucking codependent people. Those are sex addicted people or love addicted people who use relationships in a codependent fashion. Who don't really love their partners, but love the idea of loving their partners. And if you don't know the difference, be very fucking careful, because you might be one of those people. I was one of those people. It's very hard for me to assert boundaries. I really only do it after I've been burned and hurt. But there are a lot of people out there who just don't assert boundaries, and they would rather be in a miserable relationship or a miserable marriage than even think about the idea of breaking up, splitting up, or being without the idea of having this other partner. That's fucking unhealthy. And unfortunately, I know a lot of people who are in relationships like that. And that is way more emotionally abusive than anything Jonah Hill has done in these text messages. That's the elephant in the room with these text messages. Is that somehow instead of letting her go, right? The old adage, if you let her go and she comes back, she's yours. If she doesn't, then it was never meant to be. Literally, you're letting her go. You're doing the sacrificial thing. You're sacrificing your happiness for hers. Clearly, one of the most selfless things I can personally think of. And yet, her fucking control freaking and this feminist narrative, which I would argue has been promoted by the mainstream media through these fucking TV shows, that all started with that damn Duluth power and control wheel model. If you Google the Duluth... You know what? Let's just go ahead and do it on stream. We got another fucking 10 minutes. Might as well. Duluth... Look, folks. When people talk about domestic violence and not just domestic violence, but all kinds of abuse, right? This is the root of a lot of that shit, right? This is one of the most sexist things in the world right here, you're looking at here. And this is being promoted in HR departments. This is being promoted by police departments. And you notice everything, the gendered language on here, right? This idea. This idea that just like with racism, can only be a white people thing. This idea that control in a relationship can only be a male control thing. Here we go. Making her... And can only be done against women. So, yeah, look at the gendered language on here. Using coercion and threats. Carrying out threats to do something to hurt her. Threatening to leave her. Putting her down. Making her feel bad about herself. Calling her names. Using male privilege. Treating her like a servant, making all the decisions, acting like the master of the castle, being the one to define men and women's roles. This is violence. This is violence to these fucking weirdos. And it all started with this wheel and has permeated through propaganda throughout our society. To where now you can't have rational conversations about actual emotional abuse, actual mental health issues. Because let's face it, a lot of these social media addicted young women, and I'm not making an accusation about this Sarah person, but I'm just saying a lot of these young social media addicted women have histrionic or bipolar type personalities. We can't have the conversation about actual mental health and healthy relationships. No, we have to have a conversation about whether or not a man's trying to be controlling. Which brings us right back to the damn Johnny Depp stuff from a fucking year ago. The reason people were supportive of Johnny Depp is they saw through this bullshit. They saw a woman who legitimately was narcissistic and histrionic, cared so much about her image and her career that she would do anything to ruin Johnny Depp's life. And you want to believe that's not exactly what's happening to Jonah Hill right now. Again, I'm not making any diagnosis of this woman. And yeah, I don't agree with what he said in these text messages. But the man is entitled to craft with his wife the type of marriage that they would agree upon. And if he feels like his marriage is not the type of marriage he would agree upon, he's free to fucking leave. Isn't that the whole conversation we've been having about divorce, even on this channel for several fucking weeks? Like, yes, maybe don't go marry the crazy woman in the first place. Fellas, don't get married, please. Unless you have 5 kids and she's not working and you've got 2 careers and you're trying to save money on taxes and health insurance and everything else. Like, what reason do you have for bringing the government into your bedroom? You do that when you sign a marriage license. What are you going to do? And again, look, there are way more important topics than Jonah Hill's bedroom. We covered a couple of them very short today. I wish I could expound upon them even more, but they speak for themselves to some degree. Whereas this topic, it's being battered back and forth on the internet like it's crazy for a man to want to walk away from his wife. Yet these are the same people who 4 months ago were saying it was perfectly reasonable for Steven Crowder's wife to want to walk away from him for saying naughty words. I'm sick of the pussy pass. I'm sick of giving women a pass when they feel emotionally disrespected. But yet men are supposed to suck it up. What do you do? What do you do when this is our mainstream culture? It is specifically designed to tear apart families and make men suffer. It is specifically designed to make women question their wives. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. For the last 2 to 3 nights on Nick Rekieta's show, Rekieta Law, they've been talking about cuckolds. Like, literally, we're excusing cuckold behavior, but daring to want your wife to dress modestly. And again, I don't necessarily agree with Jonah Hill here, but the opposite of cuckoldry is now called abuse. Please make it make sense. Please make it make sense, because these are the same people who demand monogamy. We live in clown world, ladies and gentlemen.